Have you ever known someone who stayed in a relationship even though it was clearly making them unhappy? Or maybe you've been that person yourself. The one who tells everyone, "I'm fine," while deep down you know you're not. You tell yourself that things will get better, that maybe they'll change, or maybe you will. But day by day, your heart grows quieter, your smile becomes thinner, and you start to forget what peace used to feel like. Why do people stay in unhappy relationships? Why do they hold on when their hearts are already halfway out the door? It's not because they're weak. It's because love, or what once felt like love, is complicated. And the human heart often clings to hope long after logic has given up. On the surface, it's easy to say, if you're unhappy, just leave. But in reality, walking away from someone you've shared years, memories, and emotional roots with isn't that simple. In psychology, this phenomenon is deeply tied to emotional attachment, fear, and the brain's resistance to loss. When two people form a strong emotional bond, their brains literally adapt to that connection. Neural pathways get wired around that person, their voice, their smell, their habits, so much that being apart feels like a kind of physical withdrawal. Leaving doesn't just mean losing a partner. It means losing part of the identity you built with them. So some people stay, not because they're happy, but because they're afraid of who they'll be without that person. They fear the silence after the arguments stop. They fear waking up in an empty bed. They fear facing the question, who am I if I'm no longer theirs? Let's look at the first side, those who stay. For many, staying isn't a choice made out of ignorance, but out of love, history, and responsibility. They remember the version of the person who once made them feel safe, seen, and cherished. They hold on to the hope that maybe that version still exists somewhere beneath the exhaustion, the distance, or the pain. Some stay because they believe relationships are about fighting through the hard times, not giving up when things get tough. They tell themselves, every couple has problems. Maybe this is just our rough patch. They want to fix things, not abandon them. Others stay because of practical reasons, shared finances, children, families intertwined. They fear that leaving would cause more chaos than staying ever could. And deep down, they may also fear being judged by others. What will people say? What if I end up alone? There's also what psychologists call the sunk cost fallacy. It's the belief that you've already invested too much to walk away now. The years, the sacrifices, the apologies, they all start to feel like reasons to continue, not to quit. So even when the relationship feels heavy, the mind whispers, you've come too far to start over. And then there's hope, the most human reason of all. Because sometimes, love lingers not in the moments of joy, but in the hope that those moments might return. And that hope can be blindingly strong, even when reality whispers otherwise. Now, let's look at the other side, the perspective of those who choose to leave or can't understand why someone won't. They see the pain clearly. They see how their loved one shrinks in spirit, how they compromise their peace just to keep the relationship alive. To them, staying looks like self-destruction. They want to shake the person and say, you deserve better. You don't have to live like this. And they're not wrong. Sometimes leaving is the healthiest, most courageous choice, because choosing yourself after being diminished for too long takes strength. It takes realizing that love should not come with constant fear, guilt, or loneliness. But here's the deeper truth. Both staying and leaving require courage, just in different forms. Staying takes the courage to face emotional chaos day after day, to keep trying when it feels hopeless. Leaving takes the courage to face the unknown, to rebuild a life from scratch, to be alone long enough to find yourself again. So neither side is wrong. They're just two different ways of surviving pain. Some people stay in unhappy relationships because of attachment wounds from childhood. If someone grew up feeling abandoned, unsafe, or unloved, they may cling to relationships as a way to avoid reliving that loneliness. Even when it hurts, being with someone feels safer than being with no one. Their mind says, at least I'm not alone. At least someone's here. Others stay because of low self-worth. After years of being criticized, manipulated, or ignored, they start to believe they don't deserve better. The voice inside says, "This is the best I'll ever have. Maybe I'm the problem." That voice doesn't come from truth. It comes from pain that's been repeated so often it starts to sound believable. And then there's fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of starting over. Fear of the unknown future. Because the human brain prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar uncertainty. It's easier to stay in a storm you know than to step into a silence you don't understand yet. But here's the thing about unhappiness. It always finds a way to speak. You can silence it for a while with distractions, excuses, or routines. But over time, it leaks through your tone, your energy, your body. You feel it in the way your chest tightens when they call your name, in how your laughter doesn't sound like it used to, in how you start to envy people who are free. Unhappiness doesn't always come with shouting or fights. Sometimes it's quiet. It's the long pauses at dinner. It's the way you scroll your phone instead of talking. It's the nights when you lie beside someone yet feel utterly alone. And when that happens long enough, the soul starts whispering for change. To the ones who stay, you are not weak for holding on. You're human for trying. You wanted love to work, and that in itself is something to honor. But remember, love that only survives through suffering is not love, it's endurance. And endurance without joy eventually breaks the spirit. Staying should be a choice made from love, not fear. And if the only thing keeping you there is fear, fear of loss, judgment, or loneliness, then maybe it's time to ask yourself, am I staying because I still believe in us, or because I'm afraid to believe in me? Sometimes healing doesn't happen inside the same walls that broke you. Sometimes growth begins only when you step outside. To those who have already left, don't feel guilty for walking away. Leaving doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you finally cared enough about yourself to stop bleeding for something that wouldn't stop cutting. You gave what you could, and that's enough. Healing after leaving an unhappy relationship is not about forgetting. It's about remembering who you were before you were told you were too much, too needy, or not enough. It's about reclaiming the parts of yourself that you had to hide just to keep the peace. It's about learning to sit with your loneliness and realizing it doesn't mean you're unlovable. It means you're free. Because love isn't proven by how long you stay. It's proven by how deeply you respect your own peace and theirs. So if you're listening to this right now, sitting in silence wondering if you'll ever feel joy again, take this as your sign. You can, and you will, because the heart has an extraordinary ability to rebuild itself, as long as you give it permission to stop carrying what's already over. Thank you for listening till the end. If this episode helped you understand yourself a little more, share it with someone you know who might be staying in an unhappy relationship and needs to hear this today. And don't forget to follow this podcast, because we'll keep growing, healing, and finding our way forward together.